What's up, everyone? I did a video the other day. It was on the Carolina rig, something that I love to throw. I actually like throwing it. I'm surprised about how many people that don't like to throw it. I like to throw it, but I think it's my mindset in throwing it. A lot of people think it's like dragging around things. I'm a guy who likes to find fish and know what the bottom feels like. Like those are key things. And the Carolina rig is a fish finder. I mean, it's one of the best ways to drag something on the bottom and eliminate water and find fish in a quick manner. Now, I get it if you're throwing at the same things every day, like you fish the same spot every time you go fishing. I understand that part of it, but I don't have that luxury. I'm always fishing new water. I'm always fishing. I live on Rayburn. I can drag a worm for the rest of my life and not cover all the water on Rayburn. It's impossible. And then I got Toledo Bend, which is like, it would take me 3 lifetimes to do the same thing. So I'm always trying to throw a bait that actually lets me cover water quickly. If any of y'all live on lakes that fluctuate, your fish are moving all the time. So if you're a guy who's always fishing places where fish are moving and you're trying to locate them, Carolina rig's like one of the best things you can ever use. If you're a guy who likes to go out there and throw at the same stump, the same spot over and over again on your same lake, I understand you not wanting to throw a Carolina rig, right? I still throw it because it catches giants, it catches big ones, and it catches fish. And it's a fish catcher. Now, I've had a lot of questions, or I have a lot of questions about, hey, how come you don't do this? And a lot of them are in the comments, and one of them is about like why I use the line I do, and how come you don't do this leader with that leader and things like that. And my basic answer, and the answer sometimes I throw out there, is because like I've been doing this for a really, really long time. I'd say some of the best Carolina riggers in the country come from Texas. I know it's Carolina, but I mean, that's what we throw down here. And a lot of it's because of like inside grass lines and outside grass lines. And if you notice when they have big tournaments that come down here, you see guys all of a sudden throwing the Carolina rig. There's a reason for that. And I know a lot of these guys, we all do the same thing. There's a reason we all do the same thing. Honestly, because it works. And that's the one little simple answer. It's like, hey, don't fix what's not broken. You see the guys, and I know the guys who win Carolina rigging tournaments. We all have the same setup. I know it works. I know why it works, but I'm gonna explain to y'all a little bit more of why, the reasoning behind why we do what we do. So this is my Carolina rig setup. It's very simple. Weight, clacker, swivel, hook, right, with the leader. Now, I can throw different lines. I throw a line that's actually different than my fishing partner, Russell. Russell throws a little bit lighter line than me. I can't argue with him. I'm just saying I've had times where I've broken those off. And then I'm like, hey, you know what? I can throw a 25-pound sunline and never break off. Maybe it's because I don't retie as much. Maybe it's because of the way I set the hook, maybe a little bit harder. I think everyone should adjust, right? So like maybe he doesn't set the hook as hard as me and doesn't break off 20-pound test line. I'm not sure. I just know I've broken 20-pound test line using the same line, everything. We all have different hook sets, different styles, things like that. So you do have to adjust to what you do, right? I adjust my hook sets to different baits, to different rods, to all kinds of things. But I also found that I can get away with 25-pound test line. I fish right next to him. We never see a difference in bites. Like I'm never like, I can't catch any fish and he's getting all the bites. It's never the case. Why don't I use like a braid to fluoro or throw 25 here and 20 here because I'm worried about line size? I don't do that for one reason. I've told this many times. I'm not trying to overanalyze and overthink this. This is really simple, guys, and I'll explain. There's 2 reasons. My first one is pretty easy. I already have 25-pound test line. I don't sit there, it's already on my rod. So if I break this off, I'm just gonna use the line that's already on my reel and in my rod. I'm just gonna take this part off. So this is my leader. If I break all this off, I'm just gonna get some line off my reel and use this as my new leader. I can do that because I'm throwing a Lose 300 Super Duty. See all that? It's a bunch of line. I could probably do that 10, 15, 20 times and still have a bunch of line on that reel. I want that big reel. I want that big reel spooled up with a lot of line. I've always wanted that. I wanted that because I wanted it, like I'm dragging a Carolina rig. When I set the hook, I want to be able to take up line quickly. There's no reason not to have it. There's not one bad reason not to have your lines pulled up and have a bigger reel on there. I always like how people go, oh man, it's heavy or something. I'm like, heavy? I don't know. It's a rod and reel. None of them are heavy. they're pretty light. They're all pretty light to me. Like I can fish for, 25 days straight with a rod and reel in my hand. I'm used to it. So yeah, I've always laughed at the whole thing. Well, it's heavy. I'm like, man, if you can tell the difference between a couple ounces all day long, then more power to you. I can't do it. Now, second, this is the main reason. Your weakness in fishing or anything that can go wrong. So your rod is a weakness. That stands between you and the fish. This swivel is a weakness. This hook has weakness. The line has weakness. And these knots. These knots have weakness. Those are all things that can break on you. Your reel can break, your rod can break, your line can break. I've seen a swivel break. I've seen hooks bend. These are all things that can happen to you while setting the hook, fighting a fish. I mean, a lot of times that's how you lose a fish. A lot of times you just lose a fish because you lose it. And there's nothing you did wrong. And there's nothing wrong with that. What I'm trying to do, and what we all try to do is like, how do we eliminate those weaknesses? Well, the rod. Getting a good rod. Getting a rod that you don't think is going to break. A good quality rod. I didn't say expensive. I did not say expensive. There's expensive rods out there that are expensive because of how they made them. And I don't think they're good quality because they break. But sometimes the more expensive the rod, the way they make them, it's not great. So like I said, this could be a $75 rod and it'd be better than a $300 rod. Just because it's more expensive doesn't mean it's better. So I'm always looking to find rods that hold together well. That's why I don't tell you all about rods until I've fished them for a long, long time and put a lot of hook sets through them. There's rods out there that I've used for years upon years. If you see me throwing a rod that looks ruggedy and nasty, and I can't tell you how many times I get in the boat and so they have these pristine rods on the front deck, and then they look at my rods and they look like they're 9 years old. Well, they are 9 years old because they haven't broken 9 years. That's a good rod. A good shiny rod sometimes isn't a good rod. If I look on somebody's deck and I see a rod that's been sitting there a long time, that thing's been through it. The shiny rods, well, maybe they break and he had to go replace them constantly. That's why they're always shiny. Just saying, something to look at. So if I don't see your handle with a bunch of dirt on it, that means you haven't been holding it a long time. That means you haven't put in the work. It's kind of like the suntan line. Like if I don't see the suntan line on you, like you can always tell. I've been fishing a lot. If I have the back of my head and I have the suntan, that means I've been out on the water a lot. And it's in the springtime I still have a suntan line. Back to this. Your line can break, your rod can break, your reels can break, your knots can break. This is why I throw 25-pound test line all the way through. I don't care if it's 22. Actually, I think this is 22. I don't care if it's 22, if it's 20. If you have 25 up here, and then you put 22 down here, okay, you just made this weaker. This 25 is going to be stronger here and instantly make this 22 weaker. The reason your 22 is going to be weaker, this is going to break before this. 25 has less stretch than 22. Okay, so this is going to stretch less than this. It's going to put a little bit more tension on there. If I put braid on here, because a lot of guys say, oh, I throw braid all the time. To me, braid's 10 times worse because braid has no stretch. So now you're asking this part of your line, right, to withstand all the power you're putting in before. So I want stretch all through this. I want it to stretch. I feel with the Carolina rig especially, the way they bite it, we almost never lose fish on a Carolina rig. We're throwing a hook, a 3/0 hook, because we rarely throw big hooks on there. So we're throwing a really sharp hook. We usually throw really small baits, rarely not anything big. So this is a game hog. So you can see, even with an owner 3/0 hook, you still have a bunch of clearance. Like, you almost always hook them really good, like always. The way they bite and the way we set the hook, it's not a slack line, it's not real close. They bite it, you feel them, and as they swim off, they start to pull, and you pull back into them. You're always gonna hook them. So I don't need braid. I'm not trying to feel them bite it. I don't care if I feel them bite it. It's irrelevant to me, because I don't set the hook until they start pulling on it. Because a lot of times, and any of y'all that have been fishing around, places that have spots or Kentucky's, they like to bite the weight a lot. A lot of times, they bite the weight a bunch, and you can feel them biting the weight. White bass bite the weight a bunch. A lot of times, them biting the weight is because you're around fish. And a bass, as you're doing that, all of a sudden you feel the ding, 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 and it's doing that, and all of a sudden it goes boom, and it starts to load up. That's when we set the hook. So we don't set the hook on the bite. We set the hook on the pull. So we're getting good hook sets in. What I don't want is this line, if it was braid, to not stretch and put all the tension on this little bitty trustworthy 2.5 foot of line that is way less powerful, right? Because it's not as powerful as braid. And you've got not one, but two places for it to fail. You got this knot and this knot. Now, everyone can sit there and say they tie the perfect knot. I think I do too. But regardless, that's your weak point. That's your weak point. You got 2 weak points. In a Texas rig, you have 1 weak point, just your first knot. I'm not even counting this knot. Say that was braid, right? That would also be another weak point. So you got to think about this, guys. We have 3 weak points on your line. This knot, this knot, this knot. Anytime you change this line and this line and make one of them more powerful than the other, and I say more powerful, stronger, you're going to put more emphasis on the part that's weaker, and you're going to have a chance to break off more. It's just the way it goes. And so that's why I don't do that. That's why I keep everything the same. 1, it just makes more sense and it's easier. But 2, it actually has value, and that's the value. It's the same thing with this. A spinning rod right here. I go from braid to fluoro. I go from braid to fluoro because I used to hate the spinning rod deal of having all fluoro on there. Man, like the line twist and all that is pain. I also felt, and this is just me, because I think 90% of why people lose fish is on the hook set. I never felt like I was really getting a good hook in them, because I can't go out there and make spinning rods, but I thought they made spinning rods way too light. I still have a problem with some of these spinning rods that they make them light. It's great for open water hooks and stuff. I don't have an open hook on there. Right? We're throwing a drop shot sometimes down here in grass and then stumps and then brush piles and things, and so I can't always go an open hook. I have to get that hook through this. And by the way, we're down here catching giants sometimes and trying to get a little 2/0, and that's a big hook, but trying to get a 2/0 hook through a 7, 8, 9 pounder's mouth at times, you can't have your little crappie rig out there. You got to kind of have a rod that has some backbone. You kind of have to lean into them a little bit. Now, when you do that, we're also fishing pretty light line. So that's why I tie braid to fluoro at knot. What did I do? I created a weak point. That's my weak point, is right there. No matter how good of a knot I tie, that's probably where it's gonna break on my drop shot. There's another knot. There's another knot. Now, I don't care about my weight down here. If I lose my weight, no big deal. I'm not gonna lose a fish if I lose my weight. But now I have 2 knots on my spinning rod that could break. Your knots are where it's gonna break most of the time. Now, someone's probably on there going, well, yeah, you go braid to fluoro on your spinning rod. Why wouldn't you do it on your Carolina rig rod? Well, I just told you why. Because I don't think I get good hook sets, and there's problems with it. I don't have a problem with line twist or any of that stuff, or losing fish or not getting a hook in a fish on a Carolina rig. I never have those problems. That's never an issue of mine, ever. If you're throwing the right rod and the way you set the hook, you'll never have that problem. you got to realize I've got the right rod. I've got a stiff, heavy, big rod that I don't care how far I throw that Carolina rig, I can still get enough pressure on it to drive that hook through that fish's mouth. Like I said, I can't make spinner rods for companies. I don't have can't do that. So I feel that I need a little bit heavier, right? To make up for the rod, braid. Braid helps me with that. I'm not trying to make up for the rod on this side, but I am on this at times. And that's why I don't mind it. Like I said, if they made a heavier rod, I might not do it. If they could get rid of line twist, I might not do it. I probably wouldn't. But as of right now, that's what I have to deal with. So I'm adjusting to what I have to work with. So I'm a lot more careful. And if you notice, my drag's set different. My drag's set different. So I adjust to everything I do. I'm always adjusting. If you see this, that's my drag on this. I don't have drag. I don't need drag on this. Okay? So I don't want drag. I don't want it slipping. I'm not worried about breaking off right now because I have everything set up the right way with the right size test line and everything else. If I put braid on that and did that, now I'm gonna have to worry about the drag. Why do I not want to worry about the drag? That drag can get messed up at times. It can accidentally get a little too heavy. It can get a little light. Once again, it's one more variable in the situation that could cause a mishap. If I have no drag set and everything's the right way and I'm not going to ever break off, it's great. That's the long version of why I don't have braid to fluoro or why I don't have a lighter line on my leader and things like that. I know sometimes I just answer them because like don't fix what's not broken. That is the real answer as well, because we can probably go 100 for 100 on a Carolina rig. It's probably the one rig that like when we get a fish on, like we don't even sweat it. Like it's getting in the boat. We just almost never lose them. That's the reason, guys, I fish with that setup and don't do all these other things. Like keep it simple sometimes. There's a reason sometimes we keep it simple. It's gonna help you out. It's easier on y'all. You don't have to have all this different line and different things and different knots. No, just rig it up simple. It's what all of us have always been doing. I know some of y'all guys are gonna say, oh, I've never changed. I get it. But some of y'all ask why, that's why. All right, see you guys.